morning. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you here on this beautiful, magnificent, cloudy Ventura morning. Isn't it lovely outside? Just love it. So we're going to start our service today by standing up and celebrating joy, singing together our congregational hymn, which is on the left side of your program. The Spirit of love now leads me. The Spirit of truth sets me free. And so let us continue to breathe deeply and just know the eloquence of the words that Doreen spoke, and know that still small place within us that is really quite so infinite. We just breathe into that infinite presence, infinite power, infinite being, infinite love, as we open ourselves to hear, really hear the words of our sacred reading.
From Jalaluddin Rumi. There is a morning where presence envelops you, and you sing like a rooster in your earth-colored shape. Your heart hears, and no longer frantic, begins to dance. At that moment, the soul reaches total emptiness. Your heart becomes merry, miraculously pregnant, and your body, like a 2-day-old Jesus, says wisdom words. Now the heart turns to light, and the body picks up the tempo. Where Shams at Tabriz walks, the footprints are musical notes, and holes you fall through into space.
So let us fall into the arms of infinity right here and right now. Where Shams Tabriz walks, the footprints are musical notes, and we fall into the infinite. Shams Tabriz being Rumi's mentor, teacher, beloved friend, knowing that life is our beloved friend and everything draws us into that knowing, into that infinite, into that power, into that grace. So that we are so filled that we wake up this morning like a rooster and we have to sing. But we're not going to sing cock-a-doodle-doo. Instead, we'll sing I Am Remembering as we connect with that divine presence that is our power, that is our love. Filled with the stillness as the stillness. Let us bring this depth and power and love to our open-eyed state as we breathe in deeply. And then exhale, opening our eyes in love with what is as it is, and so it is.
Been to Paris, seen the Eiffel Tower, search for beauty in every flower, looking for love on the streets of Rome, with nothing but my backpack on. Walking so many streets, it was cool for a while, helped me learn how to smile. Now I'm happy in the skin I'm in. Everywhere I go, everywhere I've been up and down, and lost and found myself. Happy in the skin that I'm in. Swam with the dolphins in the sea. I've never felt so wild and free. I even flew to the city of sin. Spent my last dollar trying to win. all the places I've been and the journey within. There's no place like being happy in the skin I'm in. Everywhere I go, everywhere I've been up and down and lost and found myself. Happy in the skin that I'm in. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, oh, ooh, oh, 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 yeah. Happy in the skin I'm in. Everywhere I go, everywhere I've been up and down, lost and found myself. Happy in the skin that I'm in. Happy in the skin I'm in. Everywhere I go, everywhere I've been up and down, and lost and found myself. Happy in the skin that I'm in. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Great to see you again. Yeah, what do I talk about this morning? Kind of like what Meister Eckhart said, and what Rumi said over there, and also what a modern writer said, Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul, a wonderful book called The Untethered Soul. Michael Singer said, God is ecstasy. God is as high as it gets. If you want to be close to God, learn to be joyful. If you remain spontaneously happy and centered, no matter what happens, you will find God. That's the amazing part. Yes, you will find happiness, but that's nothing compared to what you're really going to find. You will stand face to face with what is beyond you. When you are done playing with the temporal and the finite, you will open to the eternal and infinite. The word happiness cannot even begin to describe your state. The joy is overwhelming and your cup runneth over. This is a beautiful path. Be happy. And so it is. Right? So that's my intention for us today, is to find our happiness, particularly if it feels like our happiness has gone missing. You know, it's like in that beautiful poem that Hugh read, where Rumi talks about his teacher, Shams Tabriz, and he says that the footprints are like holes into the infinite, and as you walk in the footprints of your teacher, you fall into the infinite. And that's what that reading said too. It's the opportunity to fall into the infinite. And who is your teacher? You're not looking at, well, you may be looking at her, but I'm among many teachers. Your whole life is your teacher, particularly the things that seem to want to bump up against you and work your nerves. It's my intention that today we end up like that Meister Eckhart quote where he says, by the end of today, you will know joy. You will have a greater understanding of joy, and you will know how joy individually plays out in your life. And if it feels like your joy has gone missing, you will have some skills as to how to recover it and how to find it and how to know that your joy is always with you, because your joy is God and you are one with God. Speaking of joy, I spent yesterday with my family of origin, and we've been bandying about this phrase in the class that I'm teaching where it says, if you want to find out if you're a mystic or not, go spend some time with your family. We actually got along really well, which was lovely. But I was, supposed to be working on this that I'm doing today, but I went and saw my family instead because they were in Los Angeles for a limited period of time. And I went and saw them, and they said, so what's your sermon tomorrow? And I was kind of grumpy. So I said, it's about joy. Because I had a grumpy week last week. First of all, okay, this is, there are so many people with bigger problems, but you know how you can sometimes handle the big stuff and then the little stuff is what makes you run screaming from the room? Anybody here ever yell at a computer? Hello? Yes. So I had this whole computer issue going on, and I ended up having to call customer service, and I couldn't get anybody, so I emailed customer service. It went for 3 days without it being resolved, and I was just going crazy, and I was just getting so irked about it. And then I got this email, and the email said, "I have fixed your problem." It's customer service. "I have fixed your problem," and it was signed, "From Richard, your happiness engineer." Is anybody here named Richard? So after the service, go see Richard. He'll get you squared away. Your happiness engineer. And I thought, I want one of those. I want a happiness engineer. Because, the computer wasn't the only thing that was going on last week. I was dealing with a lot of stuff, a lot of nonsense, and I was feeling quite grumpy. And then you get grumpy because you're grumpy, right? You get grumpy because your problems are not big enough. There are people with real problems. Why am I grumpy about this little thing that's going on, or this change that's happening, or this discomfort that I'm feeling? Why am I grumpy about this? I thought about asking Richard to see if he could help, saying, "Richard, you fixed my computer problem. Now can you fix my life?" But I didn't. I didn't. Because the term a personal happiness engineer applies to all of us. We are all possessed with a personal happiness engineer, and that personal happiness engineer is called the infinite God. It is called infinite joy. It is called infinite love, and it is called the infinite choices that we make to discover and unwrap and unfold all of the infinite possibilities of amazing joy that abide within us all the time, no matter what. So what is happiness? Remember that Peanuts cartoon, "Happiness is a warm puppy," right? That may not apply to all of us, but probably each of us has a definition of what happiness is. What happiness is. Patrick Harbulo, the author of our featured book for this month, The Magic of the Soul, he talks about how our true nature is one of unconditional love. And that's very much like saying our true nature, or the nature of the universe, is unconditional bliss, that we actually have to work or create tension to be unhappy, or to be out of alignment with bliss. Who would do that? Who would create tension to be unhappy? Well, all of us, right? All of us. The Dalai Lama says that happiness is our reason for living. The Dalai Lama is also very clear, though, about distinguishing between happiness and pleasure, right? Pleasure is something else, and pleasure can be fine, and pleasure can be instant gratification, but pleasure, have you noticed, does not always bring us happiness. Has anyone? No, never mind. Okay. All right. I think of happiness as both cause and effect. Happiness can be causal. You know that we constantly say in this teaching that the quality of our thoughts affects the quality of our lives. And if we have quality thoughts of joy, then we see joy everywhere we look. This is an old Science of Mind story that I'm going to tell, but if you've heard it, just reapply it to this scenario. You've probably heard the story about the two young boys at Christmas time. They were twins. They looked alike. They walked alike. At times they even talked alike. I'm quoting Patty Duke, people. Okay. They were twins, and they were awaiting eagerly their Christmas presents. And they ran down on Christmas morning, and there was the Christmas tree, and under the Christmas tree there was a big pile of horse poo. And one of the boys said, "Oh, I must have been a very bad boy. All I got for Christmas was horse poo." And the other boy said, "Oh my God, we got a pony! Wow!" And don't you see that all around you? You see people walking around, perhaps even yourself, expecting horse poo. And what do they get? Horse poo, right? When I'm hiking with my dogs in the mountains, I really love observing the hikers that are, if I'm going down the trail, they're coming up the trail. Some of them look so disgruntled and so unhappy, and you know that those people are just attracting more and more disgruntlement and unhappiness into their lives. There's this one woman that I always love to see, because no matter what is going on, no matter what the weather is, no matter what her dogs are doing, no matter what my dogs are doing, she is so happy. She is radiant. She is beautiful. And I just know I love to be in her presence. And that's such a great example of how attractive happiness and joy is. It just draws in more and more of what it is that we want. So happiness can be causal, but happiness can also be effect. Happiness can be an effect that indicates when we are out of alignment with our true nature. You may not want to hear this, but did you know that when airplanes fly, 95% of the time they are off course? They have an instrument panel that is very sensitive, and when the airplane just makes a little microcosmic veer off course, the instrument panel does something electronic, engineering-wise, and moves it back onto course, and then it veers off course this way and moves it back on course, and so on, so on, and so on, and so on, 95% of the time. And that's the function of our level of happiness. There's this bumper sticker that says something like, if you're not totally angry, you're not paying attention. It's the other way around. If you're not in a state of awe and wonder and bliss and harmony and grace and greatness, that's a sign that you're out of alignment with your true nature. You're not paying attention to who you really are, and who you really are is the divine life, the power, and the presence of the living God. So we get to wake up and pay attention and realign ourselves with bliss. And that's why, when I talk about being grumpy last week or what have you, when I'm really conscious about it, it's very, very powerful to notice if you're not happy, because it's just information for you. We don't have to beat ourselves up for it. We can befriend our unhappiness and see where it is teaching us that we are out of alignment with our true nature. The truth is that we can be happy no matter what is going on. And that is one of the main barriers to happiness, is that we don't believe that. We don't believe that we can be happy no matter what is going on. There's a story from Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, I believe, and I share this story a lot, but it came up for me again as I was thinking about this message. It's a story about Krishnamurti, mystic teacher, and he was sitting around with his disciples, and they asked him, Master, what is your secret for happiness? And there was this pause while Krishnamurti thought, and the disciples waited, bated breath to see what he would say. And he said, the secret to happiness for me is I don't mind what happens. And the disciples said, yeah, what else you got? I don't mind what happens. We'll talk about that more in a minute. I want to read you another quote from The Magic of the Soul, where the author says, at the root of all unhappiness, anger, and hurt is an expectation or desire for the world or others to give us the peace that we can only find within ourselves through acceptance of what is. Through a profound and deep and powerful and sometimes uncomfortable acceptance of what is. Because, the truth for many of us is that we understand that this idea that we can be happy, but we do the exact opposite of what will create happiness for us. Much of what we do in our minds, and we think the thoughts that create the exact opposite of happiness for us. I've done it sometimes on a Sunday. I've preached a sermon about happiness, and by the time I get to the back of the church, I am doing the exact opposite of what I've said, right? It seems to me that we often have this like a manifesto, like a story that we have about why we're not happy. And I looked at my stories about why I was grumpy this past week and what was really going wrong. And really what the stories for many of us seem to boil down to is that life is not behaving as it should. Other people are not behaving as they should. I am not behaving as I should. And then we mix in regrets about the past or shame about the past and projecting negative consequences onto the future. And that creates this whole elaborate document that prevents us from experiencing our joy. When really, right beneath that, right beneath all of the stories that we tell ourselves, there is joy waiting to be expressed. It's simply our welcoming of the joy that allows it to be expressed, that allows it to come forth. So how do we do that? What if you really do mind what happens? I've told that story for years, and that's the first time I've asked myself that question. Yeah, but what if you really do mind what happens? Just think within yourselves for a minute. Are you minding what happens at all? Are you distressed about what's happening? Do you want the world to be different? Do you want someone else to be different? Do you wish that you were different? And that's all fine. We look at how we are minding what happens. We look at the story that we tell ourselves about that. And then we hold it up to the light of truth and see if it really is true. The thing is that all of our stories are true. Remember I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I asked everybody to touch your elbow. Let's do that again. Touch your elbow. And are you touching your body? Yes, you are. Are you touching your entire body? No, right? So that's just like our story. Our story may be so real and so true, but it's not the entire story. Right back of that story that you're telling yourself, that we're telling ourselves about how life should be different, how this other person should be different, how I should be different, how the past should have been different, how the future is going to be horrible. Right past all of the stories, there is a greater truth. And so when we relax and let go of our stories and stop saying that this is the only truth, that opens us up into a greater place where we can receive the infinite possibility of something else, of something greater. There is always something greater. There's always something better to be expressed. And it's not about changing the external situation outside of ourselves. It is about changing our reaction to the situation inside of ourselves. You know, when I really looked at this grumpiness that I was feeling last week, and I was listing the things that were wrong with my life and that were wrong with the people in my life and that were wrong with me, why couldn't I finally have gotten this by now? Listing all of that stuff. What I really got was that it wasn't about any of those details in my external life. I just did not want to feel the discomfort of change and transformation and the inevitability that life is a dynamic, moving thing that sometimes drags us kicking and screaming. You know, I mean, do you like change? Yeah, I like it too when I like it, you know, when it's something good, when it's something good. But when I don't want it to happen, it feels awful. And so much of our story is to protect us from feeling those things that we do not wish to feel, right? We use our story to beat reality over the head. Anybody read my blog this week? It was about Ruth Buzzy. Remember Ruth Buzzy playing that character of Gladys where she's beating Artie Johnson over the head? That's how we are with reality. That's how we use our stories. We beat reality over the head with our stories. And it's time simply just to let that go. To let that go. To look at your story. To ask, is it true? And the answer to that may be yes, right? If you're a Byron Katie person, the answer to that is usually no. But what Byron Katie really means to say is that the story is true, but it's not the only truth. There is another greater truth waiting to be revealed, or you would not be experiencing the discomfort that you're experiencing, right? Anybody ever experience discomfort from growth? Anybody ever experience discomfort from, I have to say it, giving birth? See if I can control myself and not pop, right? Somebody do it for me. Good job, Peter. Thank you. Yeah, if it were that easy, you know, it would be different. That's your discomfort, your lack of happiness is just a sign that there is great growth and great transformation and great wonder and great love, and great joy, great happiness waiting to be revealed in back of that thing that you are beating to death with your story about it, right? I'm laughing at these girls who are laughing in church. There is wonderful joy for you. So what are some of the practical ways to gain access to that joy, particularly when you are stuck in your story, particularly when you are stuck in something that is limiting your experience of joy? Because as Ernest Holmes said, all limitation is self-imposed. Okay, so what do we do when we're really stuck in a story? First of all, stop blaming what is out there for our lack of joy. Bring it back inside. Look at ourselves. Eckhart Tolle says, ask yourself, do you want this present moment to be your friend or your enemy? It's a good question, right? If the present moment is your enemy, then great, acknowledge that, accept that. If you are truly unhappy, there is such a deep paradox in healing that you can even be unhappy, or you can even be happy about your unhappiness, right? Sometimes grief is just a normal process that we have to go through, and it feels like unhappiness. But as we start letting go of the layers of story, as we stop beating reality over the head with our stories, as we start to open up to this infinite being that is us, then new and better possibilities are constantly revealed to us, and something that we never even thought of before is shown forth in our willingness to let go, in our willingness to ask the questions, in our willingness to allow ourselves to feel the discomfort that we do not wish to feel, knowing, of course, that there is something beautiful on the other side of the discomfort. So we let go and we let God. God is that infinite grace that is always waiting to bestow itself upon us. But, again, the main point is stop trying to fix what is out there and do the inner work of changing ourselves, changing our heart, changing our response, changing our reactivity to the stories that we are telling ourselves, and ultimately changing our stories. If we do that, we will truly fall into the footprints of the infinite. We will fall into divine grace. And we will fall into that beauty and that power and that love that is the possibility for all of us, that is the birthright of all of us. You know, I always think about Anita Moorjani when she came and spoke here, and she talked about how when Anita Moorjani had cancer and she died, basically. She was in a coma near death and then came back to life and wrote a book about it. And when she came here and spoke, she said that on the other side, it's like there is this magnificent warehouse, that we are in a magnificent warehouse on this side as well, and that we're looking through this warehouse with a little tiny flashlight. And when you cross to the other side and you come back, it's like someone has switched on all the lights. Can you imagine being in Costco with a little pen light saying, where's the vat of ketchup I am seeking, you know? Our willingness to look at our stories, to befriend our stories, to feel the discomfort that we do not wish to feel, and then to move beyond the discomfort is like turning on the lights. Everything becomes beautiful. Everything is the grace of God waiting to express. And it couldn't be any other way because God is all things. So, the next question really is, what will you do with this information? Are you willing to look at the places in your life where you feel less than happy? Are you willing to acknowledge that some of that certainly is your perspective, and to acknowledge that the lack of happiness is like an indicator light on your engine, on your car, that says you are somewhat out of alignment with your true nature? And then are you willing to look at the story that you are telling about what is happening and hold that up to the light of reality, knowing that yes, the story may be true, but it is not the entire truth? And then are you willing to surrender, to say, I am willing to see a bigger picture. I am willing to see a greater truth behind this reality that I am creating in my mind. I am willing to be led into ever-expanding realms of infinite love and grace and power and joy. I am willing to be happy. Are you willing? Good. I hope so, because the entire world is depending on your happiness. You know, I had a therapist that used to say, because, you know, many of us have grown up with sort of this Puritan work ethic, and we're supposed to be serious and dour, and, you know, we look like the people on the side of the Quaker Oats box or whatever. And my therapist used to say, if you were going to have brain surgery, would you rather have a brain surgeon who was rested and happy, or a brain surgeon who was sour and tired? Right? We're all brain surgeons in one way or another. We are all doing important work here in the world. The world is depending on your happiness. Your life can bloom into ways that are beyond your understanding right now. You can leave this church and take these words and apply them, and then come back and allow the community to support you in your growth. You can be that person that you long to be. You can be that happiness, that joy in action, because you are the life of the infinite. You are one with God, and you have always been. You always will be. Nothing can change that. So let's go into that place of knowing right now, and let us pray. I rest in the awareness of the ultimate joy of God. Just take a moment to feel that, the ultimate joy of God. The joy that gave birth to itself in this beautiful universe, that created the planets and the stars, that created the puppies and the kittens and the birds and the flowers and the oceans and everything in it. This magnificence that is so amazing that our words can't even begin to contain it. This magnificence is bliss. This magnificence is love. This magnificence is power, and this magnificence is real, and it is our reality right here and right now. We are deeply connected to this reality of bliss. It is our life. It is who we are. It is everything we are. And so as I connect to this bliss, to this being, to this place, to this power, to this love, I know and I trust that life is unfolding perfectly. That there is a power and a presence that guides and guards and protects my life and the life of all of us. That it leads us into the paths that allow us to continue to deepen and grow and expand in this infinite wonder that is known as God. That it is the life and the goodness that brings us to sometimes feel uncomfortable, but it also inspires us to befriend the discomfort and to look at ourselves and to do the deep and powerful inner work that is required of us as spiritual seekers. I am so grateful for this opportunity to learn and grow, so grateful for the joy that is part of creation, that is all of creation, so grateful for the realization, and so grateful for the healing that I know has come forth in our sacred time together this morning. I am deeply grateful for this community. And I bless this teaching as well, as I bless all paths to God. Churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, ashrams. I bless atheists and fundamentalists, knowing that everyone is a blessing. And with a heart that is so filled with blessedness, I say, thank you, Spirit, thank you, God. And I release these words into mystical law, and together we say, and so it is. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed.
See clearly now, my mind is still. I can see all obstacles that are in my way. Gone are the dark